Today I want to do something a little bit different, and I want to tell you my story. The story of how I came to eat paleo, autoimmune paleo, grain-free, gluten-free, all of this. Because like most of you, I started off with a standard American diet and really did not know anything about nutrition or health or anything like that. So I started off my life eating a completely normal standard American diet. Grew up in New Jersey, 2 kids in my family, 2 parents, you know, not a white picket fence, but and a normal day for us, like breakfast for me was always something like Lucky Charms or Fruity Pebbles or Frosted Mini Wheats with skim milk, and maybe sometimes orange juice as well. Lunch was always, for like 15 straight years, peanut butter and jelly on white bread with Cheetos and a box of Minute Maid apple juice. Seriously, for 15 straight years. I have no idea how I was not really sick of it. Dinner was always something simple like hot dogs, or ravioli night on Friday was always my favorite. And then my mom was not the biggest domestic person. She was a great mom and I loved her so much, but food was not her strong point. So it was always simple meals. Things like anything like a casserole with cream of mushroom or cream of something kind of soup, pasta, you know, just easy things to do. I think the only vegetables I may have ever eaten were romaine lettuce or iceberg lettuce or something in a Caesar salad kit that my mom used to buy. And then I'm not really sure what I was thinking, but I used to take the vegetables if she ever made like green beans or peas or anything, and I would either spit them out and put them on my napkin and then like either throw it on the floor or just spit them out and put them on the floor. Now, the thing I don't know what I was thinking was that we didn't have a dog. Where exactly did I think these things were going? I mean, obviously my mom had to clean them up, right? So she knew I wasn't eating them, but you know, in a kid's mind, you think, oh, it's under the floor, nobody will ever find it. We'd always have ice cream after dinner, and soda was just like a normal thing that we would drink all the time. It wasn't thought to be unhealthy or anything like that. I was always an athlete, so I always got a lot of movement in, and I would have Doritos or something as my after workout snack. And I was always a straight A student, AP kind of classes and stuff, so I did have a moderate amount of stress throughout my life, but I don't find it's like any different than probably most kids and teenagers' lives in America these days. When I went to college, things got a little bit dicey because that's where I discovered the world of beer, nachos, burgers and fries, all of this kind of stuff. And I worked in a bar, so that didn't help. I gained the freshman 15 and then some. I think I finished college 40 pounds heavier than when I started. And mind you, I was pretty skinny as a kid. I'm 6 feet tall, so I believe that I grew really fast. And so the skinniness was from that, but it was still like to have 40 more pounds in my frame, I did look overweight and I didn't feel great either. And I mean, it really affected my self-esteem, did not feel good about myself, all of those things. I mean, it was just bad news. Now, my mom had been overweight and kind of like going through diets her whole entire life. And so I grew up seeing her on Nutrisystem and Weight Watchers and trying pretty much every fad diet that there was out there. And so that's what I knew. So when I got to this point where I was overweight as well, I went straight to eating lean cuisine, low fat, kind of just whatever I could get my hands on, low calorie kind of meals. The standard kind of weight loss things that, you know, most people do. And I was starving all the time, didn't really lose any weight, and I figured that there had to be a better way. So I started walking and walking and walking and walking, and then that turned into running and running and running and running, and then I got into marathons and Ironman triathlons because I kind of thought in my head, hey, I could exercise the weight off. And then I can eat whatever I want and it doesn't matter because I'm going to be exercising to balance it, right? The calories in, calories out kind of method. And I think a lot of people fall into that faulty thinking, but I fell into it whole hog. I was all in. And this went on and I did lose weight. I can't say like I was healthy at this point. I was still eating the Fruity Pebbles and milkshakes and everything like that. But I did lose some weight and I never looked the way that I wanted to though. I envisioned in my head this like healthy, strong, muscular Ironman triathlon, and I still had a lot of like weight around my midsection and everything like that. So I never got quite to where I thought I was going to be just from working out. And then after my second Ironman triathlon, I could not recover. No matter how hard I tried, no matter how much I slept, no matter how much like I rested after like work or, just didn't work out or anything like that. I just was so tired all the time. So I finally went to my doctor, and after some tests, thinking maybe it was mono or something like that, he figured out that it was hypothyroidism. And this kind of rocked my world because as far as I knew, I was healthy. I mean, I had just gotten done an Ironman triathlon. I was the epitome of health. But no, I actually had this underlying disease. Now, my doctor said this disease was autoimmune in nature, but that the only thing that could be done was for me to take levothyroxine, which is a medication that replaces the hormone that my thyroid could no longer take. So I went on and I started taking it, and I felt a little bit better for a while. And I'll get a little bit more into that in a bit. It was during this time, about a month later, my mom got diagnosed with melanoma skin cancer. And that was just, I thought the thyroid thing rocked my world, but then I completely forgot about that for a while and focused on my mom, because my mom was my best friend, my confidant, everything was about her. She was the first person I would go to about anything. And so the idea that she was sick, and it was stage 4, so we kind of knew that there was not much that they could do. Especially at the time, this was 10 years ago, they didn't have very much in the way of chemo or anything to help. So we knew it was a very slim chance that she was going to survive. And this really kind of made me think about what we were eating and putting on our bodies and all of that kind of stuff. So my husband's always been a lot better of an eater than I have. He grew up eating healthy food. He doesn't have the food memories and cravings and everything that I do. And he had been trying to get me to switch over to eating healthier for a long time. But I think between me getting sick and then my mom getting sick, it really kind of woke me up, and I started really listening to him. And so we planted an organic garden in our yard, and I started eating more organic foods and eating heart-healthy whole grains and everything by the standard healthy American kind of way of eating. Still low fat, high carb kind of thing, because obviously we were triathletes. We had to eat high carb. And this went on until I had my older son. And when I had him, something switched in my brain where I was like, I need to make sure that he is healthy. And so I really started getting into blogs at this time, reading them, understanding what was considered to be really healthy. And I started getting into the Weston A price kind of things. Now, if you're not familiar with Weston A. Price, he was a dentist, I believe, from the 1900s, who studied traditional cultures from the 1800s and around that time, of who had really strong bone structures, teeth, and things like that. So he and his whole entire foundation recommend things like soaking and fermenting your grains, eating pastured meats and dairy, and just eating a really healthy kind of not processed diet. So I went into this whole hog. I got a grain mill and milled my own wheat, and I would soak and ferment and do all of these things so that we would eat the healthiest diet possible. I would not let anything that was not organic touch my child's lips at all. I was strict. And then he had a really rough winter one year where he had 4 ear infections, bam, 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 and went on 4 rounds of antibiotics, bam, 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 bam. And suddenly, the applesauce with cinnamon that I had made and canned that winter, along with some walnuts, made him break out into a rash all over his body. This was really interesting to me because he had had that same cinnamon applesauce hundreds of times with no reaction whatsoever. But yet, I did it once, he broke out in the rash, and then I thought, maybe that was just a random thing. Tried again, same thing. Broke out in this, it was this disgusting red rash all over him. And same thing when he had walnuts. So we brought him to the doctor, went to an allergist, and they did the skin patch test, and it came back that he was allergic to everything that they had done, but not all the way allergic, just he reacted basically to everything. And the allergist was kind of I don't know what that means. I guess just don't put him on nuts until he's 3 and come back and see us then. That's literally what he said. So as a mom, that was really hard to hear because what's wrong with my kid? How come you can't help him? But luckily, since I had been reading all those blogs about healthy eating and Weston Price and all of that, I had been reading some about a grain-free diet and helping with food allergies or sensitivities. Not necessarily anaphylactic kind of allergies, but allergies like this where he was breaking out in a rash. And I remember when I had first read about it, I was like, heck no. I used stronger language than that, but there was no way I was gonna give up my pasta and my bread. So I just was like, yeah, well, that's not gonna happen. Now, when my son got this allergy kind of thing, I was like, oh, maybe we should do this. And then I got pregnant and we were doing well until I miscarried. And then I said, okay, something needs to change, because if Nathan's got these allergies and he's not doing well and I just miscarried, there's obviously something wrong. Our health is just not where it needs to be. So let's go ahead and try this grain-free diet. My son Nathan was just about to turn 2, and we decided to do the GAPS diet, which is the Gut and Psychology Syndrome by Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride. It's a great diet. It's basically a year, but it's a similar kind of diet to autoimmune paleo, where you do an elimination portion and then you reintroduce foods. And it is really specifically for gut healing. I remember reading through the book before we started, and I think there was a section about thyroid health, and me thinking, I wonder if that's gonna help me with these symptoms that I've had for years that my doctor says that I can't change. Because at this point, now I've been feeling still tired, and every time I mentioned this to my doctor, he said, well, I can't put you on higher medication because then you'll go hyperthyroid, and then you'll be at risk for osteoporosis and all of these other things. And so you're basically gonna have to just stay tired all the time. And I really just didn't like that answer. So that book, the Gut and Psychology Syndrome book, was the first thing that really kind of opened my mind to the fact that there was something I might be able to do about it. So mid-October, we decided to start the GAPS diet, and it was just Nathan and I. My husband was like, heck no, I'm not doing this. And my husband didn't really need to. He didn't feel bad or anything. So I went on it more for moral support for Nathan, but I think, in my mind, I knew that I needed to get healthy too. So we went on it. The first morning we had boiled onions for breakfast. It was terrible. I thought I was gonna die and I wanted to quit right there, but we stuck with it. Found some better things to eat, and we started to feel better. Nathan had just turned 2, and before we started the diet was just putting 2 words together. He was having a really hard time doing that, but right before this, he finally got mama here in 1 sentence. So we went on a diet almost immediately after he started to say mama here, and within a week of being on the diet, he said, mama, drive the car really fast. And that we were both my husband and I kind of looked at each other like, whoa, like what was going on in his brain that he could suddenly start saying stuff like this? Was there some sort of inflammation that we were quelling by putting him on this diet? And at daycare, his teachers were like, oh my God, Nathan's a totally different kid. He is so much less aggressive. He's paying attention. He used to kind of sit off by himself and just kind of watch, but now he's actually in the action and he's doing great. We are so thrilled to have him in class now. We're just amazed by this. Me, on the other hand, I was just kind of miserable for quite a while. I mean, I was starting to feel better, but I was kind of missing all of my foods. But then a month and a half into the diet, it was 6 weeks after we started the diet, I went outside, and this is like the epiphany of all epiphanies for me, that it was a fall day, and I looked outside and I was like, whoa, everything was so crystal clear. I could see every single leaf on the tree, the details on the trunks of the trees. I could read signs from far away. I always say it was like from standard television to high def television, where things were just crystal clear. And the colors, oh my God, the colors were so vibrant. So this obviously showed me that I had some brain fog or inflammation going on. I knew I had brain fog, but it really showed that I did have inflammation. And then when I went back into work, I could read my specs like this instead of having to read them 4 or 5 times to understand what I had to do. And when people asked me questions, I was answering them like crazy. It was amazing. Okay, I've just been editing this video and it got to be about 25 minutes long when I was all said and done. So I'm breaking it up into 2 parts. I'm gonna publish this one today, and then the next one will be on Tuesday. In the next one, I go over what happened after I got pregnant with my younger son, Oliver, how I went back onto a total gluten binge, and then got into paleo, and then my health kind of completely failed after going on paleo. So stay tuned for that on Tuesday.